Welcome back, my dear friends, to this new military recap. Here are the latest updates on the war between Iran and Israel as of noon, June 22. The 20th wave of Iranian forces targeted security and research facilities in addition to an economic zone, heading toward Haifa and Tel Aviv. Follow the full details in this video, and please make sure to watch all the episodes. The announced targets included, of course, the Center for Biological and Chemical Scientific Research in the Ness Ziona area. This site was struck, and it is a very critical research center that develops unconventional weapons for the Israeli army. Moreover, it significantly impacts the structure of the Israeli military and its capabilities, especially the superiority of its weapons development programs. Another target was Ben Gurion Airport, where the area was hit by a number of missiles. Of course, my friends, there were additional targets that were struck, but what's going on is that the publicly known targets are just part of the picture. The Israelis deny using these important centers linked to intelligence and command, and so they have relocated operations to disguised locations, inside economic, research, and civilian zones, in an attempt to prevent Iranian detection. So when Iranians strike these locations, no official losses are reported to avoid confirming Iranian intelligence or its sources. This remains part of the information war. That's why you often hear of strikes on sensitive command locations, but Israel never confirms anything. This is a precaution so that Iranians cannot rely on the same sources to strike again. Regarding the Haifa direction, the strike also hit that area, which included security offices within this vital economic zone. Additionally, targets were hit in this economic area, and there had already been earlier strikes on the Ministry of Interior building and security offices in Haifa. Here we notice something very important, which brings us to the missile used in this operation. First, you'll see that Iranian missiles now reach their targets more accurately and hit more effectively. This brings us to the subject of exhausting air defenses and evaluating Iranian capabilities. Iranian forces announced for the first time the use of the Kheibar Shekan missile, Kheibar Breaker, a third-generation multi-warhead ballistic missile. This missile is indeed significant. It is said to have very high accuracy and a range of 1,450 kilometers. I will also explain this further in the video, so stay tuned. The strike was powerful and not easy. It was accurate against its intended targets, and a large portion of the missiles hit their objectives. Therefore, there was no major interception effort as in previous incidents. So, let's be logical. If the Iranians can achieve their objectives with a limited number of missiles, why would they launch 100 or 70 or 200 missiles when they can accomplish the mission with fewer? A small number of missiles does not mean Iran's capabilities are limited. This is a very important point. As long as they can reach their goals with fewer missiles, why should they deplete their stock? That's one. The second point. As I said, the missile's range is about 1,450 kilometers. You'll often see this red line representing the 1,400-kilometer mark. So, if we assume the missile has a 1,450-kilometer range and was launched from this area toward the Iraqi border, then this undermines Israeli army claims that say this region is under full surveillance and operational control. This proves that Iranian forces are capable of launching missiles from there. Now let's speak factually and objectively. The range is clear, the distance is defined, and geographically, the launch origin is identifiable. This means they do not have full control over this airspace. But let's also be realistic and fair. There are constant surveillance attempts throughout this region, ongoing efforts to detect these shipments, missile launchers, and other platforms. Simultaneously, work is ongoing to destroy, as much as possible, bases and naval stations to neutralize Iran's ability to block the Strait of Hormuz while also applying pressure on air defenses across this entire zone. The goal is to establish what might be described as a restricted airspace, an area where aircraft cannot fly or where any flying object can be immediately tracked. These attempts aim to place the region under full Israeli and American observation to prevent missile launches. Another important point to understand, my friends, is that efforts are being made to push Iranian missile capabilities as far as possible away from these areas. Why? Clearly, this is all an attempt to keep short-range missiles away from targeting American bases deployed in Turkey, Iraq, Syria, and the Gulf. So they're trying to dominate the airspace and prevent any ground movement along the terrain. That's why operations may escalate in the coming phases. But until then, As you can see, new missile systems are being introduced, and various and diverse targets in Haifa, Tel Aviv, and elsewhere are being struck. This indicates that for now, the battle is following a certain course. The Iranian response to the morning strikes will determine how the Americans react and what the next stage of the war looks like. Therefore, we must wait. My dear friends, that was everything for now, but it was necessary to clarify many points. I hope things have become clearer to you, what the Americans and Israelis are trying to do, and what Iran is aiming to achieve. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your precious time, and see you in another video.